Joining us right now is Representative Mike Rogers of Michigan. He is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Chairman Rogers, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks. Great to be here. Thanks, Larry.
I'm looking at the story about the tragic, horrible execution of James Foley, the American journalist, and I'm seeing these headlines. One of them is "The Race to Save James Foley, the Inside Story." This is at NBCnews.com. And part of the inside story includes this information leaked from the White House or distributed from the White House in some way about a failed rescue attempt from Special Operations Forces in northern Syria. Why are we getting the inside story? Shouldn't this be classified?
No, it absolutely should be classified. And what was concerning to me is that literally the day before that the White House released this, I happened to be in conversation with individuals who do that kind of work, and they were ecstatic that the bad guys hadn't quite figured out who had done it yet.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
they were continuing to misattribute who or what happened, and it was to them that was a huge success because it protected operational security if they were ever going to do another one of those.
Well, that's a huge success that the White House just destroyed, negated, by letting our enemies know exactly who did that and what their mission was.
Absolutely. I can only imagine what they're feeling right now, but it can't be very happy. These are really difficult, very complicated things, and for just an open disclosure, and certainly the timing of it is suspect. It came right on the heels of, well, the president's golfing, they're not doing anything. They leaked this particular story about, see how aren't we tough? We went and did this particular raid, if you will.
Chairman Rogers, can you explain how this might impede an attempt at rescuing the other American hostages that are there? I mean, how does this work to make it more difficult for special forces to go in and try this again?
Well, I mean, clearly, if you're not expecting any U.S. forces to show up on your doorstep and knock and say hello in eastern Syria, then your operational and security posture is different. Now that they've disclosed to the world that this is exactly what happened, they're going to change their security and operational status. These are not knuckle-dragging idiots. These are very sophisticated folks. We watch them change their security operational status when they communicate. We are watching it, and we'll see now that they'll change the way that they're moving, treating, securing these hostages, and that just makes it that much more difficult for the mission to be successful. That's what's so frustrating to me, and I just even if it's true that they say, well, the press had a hold of it, you could have absolutely gone into plausible deniability. That's why you have it under legal authority to do that, and Congress was fully briefed on this at the time it was occurring and before for the National Security Committees, me included, felt very comfortable with all the information. And so now when they look at this, and this exposes our people to an immense amount of danger. This is a very dangerous episode.
What do you know about reports that perhaps one of the reasons why Special Forces were not able to rescue Foley was that the administration waited a little too long to give the green light to the mission? Have you heard anything about that?
Well, I don't want to talk about the very specifics of this particular operation, but I can tell you in the past that it has been very difficult to get a decision to move out smartly on a lot of these types of very difficult things. And time is of the essence. In this particular case, everybody says, oh, it was a failure. I would not say it was a failure. I mean, the complication of it, getting in, getting out, and you can imagine when you're there, in the whole process of that, you learn things. And so it was not necessarily a failure, and it was just a very short period of time, according to the folks I talked to, that they believe that the hostages were there at least at one point. That's valuable. And so timing of the order does matter in these particular cases. And again, I don't want to go into the specifics of this particular case, but timing matters. So if you're going to do this, you have to be decisive.
And just to follow up on that, I want to understand your answer completely. I understand you're not giving details of this operation, but it has been your experience as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee that it is not outside of the normal operations for the green light to be. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's. Why don't you go ahead and say it, because I don't want to. But like I said, I don't want to put words in your mouth. But it's you believe it's standard. Go ahead. Say I don't want to again.
I just think it has been difficult for the administration in the past to be decisive when they get this information and have a timely decision.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I can leave it at that. And clearly, the best example of that was the UDL raid. I watched that unfold from the inside, scratching my head for days. Now, that one turned out great because he ended up was there and he had less mobility at that particular location. But in these kinds of cases, you cannot wait too long. If you get the right intelligence that gives you acuity that there's likely that your objective is either there or you want to do something at that objective, then decisiveness quickly is incredibly important.
Our guest is Mike Rogers. He's the congressman from Michigan who is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And I want to sort of zoom out a little bit on ISIS. In January, when asked by the New Yorker about the terrorist threat that this group poses, the president dismissed them, basically said that they were like even if a JV team puts on a Kobe Bryant uniform, that doesn't make them play like the Lakers. That was in January. Are we to believe that in January we didn't have intelligence and a real understanding of what kind of threat this group posed?
I would argue absolutely not. So what happened between January and yesterday when the Secretary of Defense comes out and says this is a very sophisticated U.S. threatening terrorist organization? And by the way, the most shocking thing at that press conference, I think it was Dempsey, the Joint Chief of Staff, said that if we're going to solve this problem, we have to do it in Syria. Well, those of us who have been saying that for about a year and a half, who watched this thing just develop right before our eyes, understand that this was a problem then. And I think, again, this administration's tactic is, well, if we just downplay the threat, then we don't have to do anything about the threat, which is why I think the suspect timing of the release of, yes, they beheaded this particular thing, which is an awful, horrible thing, and my thoughts go out to the family. So we're going to show that we did something. Not that the fact that they're trying to deal with an organization that is no longer just a terrorist group, it is a terrorist group with an army, and that includes tanks, helicopters, artillery pieces, anti-aircraft equipment, lots of weapons, lots of cash, and they hold safe haven in a place about the size of Indiana. That just didn't happen since January. And that's what's so frustrating to those of us who knew that a little bit of effort early on with our Arab League partners may have stopped a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of deaths across the Levant.
Chairman Rogers, there's also been a lot of talk about U.S. and European passport holders who are also members of ISIS. What do you know about that, and what's the real threat level with these people?
Oh, it's huge. And so you have two things, and this gets lost in the haze. But back about a year ago, there was a split between ISIS and al-Qaeda, the leader, Zawahiri, the leader of al-Qaeda. And so the interesting part of this was the split was really about ISIS saying, we want to use these people that we are finding showing up, the Westerners with Western passports, including Americans, to go back and do terrorist activities in their home countries. And Zawahiri said, no, we want you to focus on Syria. And so if you think about what happened, the fight was not that they were brutal. It was about, hey, we're trying to exert some control here. We want you to focus only on Syria so we can take Syria, and then we'll worry about external attacks later. That's what started this whole rift between what is now ISIS, formerly an al-Qaeda affiliate, and al-Qaeda core. So it's clearly a danger. And here's what I really think is dangerous now. You have a competition now between ISIS, as you see it now, or ISIL, because they have these individuals with Western passport holders, and al-Qaeda both trying to get some points on the board when it comes to a Western terrorist attack. So there's a bit of this very unhealthy, for the United States, competition for them to perform a successful terrorist attack so they can say, we are the legitimate international terrorist organization, and that's what should concern people.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Chairman, we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much, though, for that insight. It's so valuable for us.